retaining top talent. For this, I would like to introduce our moderator for this session, Ms. Minnie Simpson, Head HR, Emerging Business from Sundaram Home Finance. Along with her, I would like to introduce our panelist, Ms. Lavanya Nandakumar, VP and Global Head of Talent Acquisition, Prodapt, Mr. Fabian Figredo, Head of Talent Acquisition, Shell, Mr. Suresh JV, Head Talent Acquisition, India, Genesys, Ms. Huma Tariq, CHRO, Dvara, KGFS, Ms. Ayshwarya Srinivasan, Vice President, Human Resources, Guardian Life.
Good afternoon. I know we are sitting between your lunch and you, so I don't think we'll take much time. We'll try to finish it as fast as possible. So we'll leave the floor open for you to ask the questions. So all these years, HR earlier used to be in handling only operations. And of late, business has become part of HR. We are responsible for business numbers as much as businesses. So what worked yesterday is not working today, and what works today may not work tomorrow. So we are in that scenario. And today we found a place in the board. So now it's a huge responsibility on the HR to see how we are going to adopt new strategies. So, and we've got a very apt topic for today. So the future of talent acquisition and how we are going to build strategies to attract and retain top talent. So it's very difficult to hire these days. It's no longer employer's market. Now it's employee gets to call the shots. And with great difficulty, we find and manage get a talent in. Retaining them is a bigger challenge. And how we are going to give some scope for progress for them is something that we have to work on. And how technology we are going to use in our favor to get all these done is what we are going to look at. So we have a very diverse group of people sitting here from different sectors. So we'll start the panel with our questions. So to first, we are going to find out what are the challenges that we are facing in talent acquisition and how we are managing it. So let me start with...
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Okay, so I think challenges everybody here will also possibly resonate. One is, as you rightly said, the changing landscape, in terms of both people and business. There is also, I would say, pre-COVID, post-COVID, though, we are not talking about it. It's created so many changes and, it's kind of, it's kind of been the game changer when it comes to people policies. And I think a biggest challenge that at least, we are seeing is how the generations have evolved. And when you have various generations, which are from, Gen X to Millennial to Gen Z to Alpha, and I think the next one is already there, it becomes very difficult as to how do we manage the expectations of someone who's hiring, who's probably, I would say, a Gen X who wants to hire a Gen Z, right? And so even the expectation mismatch, what people look for in candidates, and I'm keeping things like, skill, proficiency, whether they are good in the job, outside of it, but more talking from a people angle. So I think that becomes a crucial part of, what we do, because it keeps changing, and it's not changing like every, 5 years or 10 years like before. It's changing every 2 years. And how do we manage it is something that we need to look at very, very closely.
Fabian, would you like to add to it?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. So if I look at challenges in talent acquisition, I think looking at the industry sort of shifts and it sort of changes. The GCC's talent acquisition challenge will be very different from what you would have, say, in a sales and marketing organization. So maybe let me try and put a spin on it from a GCC context. I think today, if you look at it as talent per se, just what is the quantum of talent that is available, India is a talent surplus country. We have far more talent as against the number of jobs that we have. So it becomes, when there's a problem of plenty, it becomes a problem of how do you sift through this talent to get the right talent to come into your organization. What is the value proposition that you're going to offer and bring this talent into the organization? So when you have to sift through talent today, on an average, you put out a job out there, you have at least 2,000, 3,000 applications. So from a recruitment point of view, you need to have the right tools, the right capability to be able to sift through this talent. So I think that's challenge number one. The second is about when you look at it from a hiring manager point of view. When today hiring managers are super sensitive to the kind of talent that they want. They want those purple unicorns that sometimes may not exist out there. So how do you balance that expectation with your hiring manager to indicate that I'll probably need to get a horse with a horn, and that will be called probably a purple unicorn. So being able to balance, and I think that's where the role of a recruiter today is also sort of shaped or reshaped itself from becoming a yes sir, I will do this, to coming back and having very meaningful conversations with the business and playing the role of an actual business partner. So being able to balance business expectations. And I think the third is about being able to manage candidate expectations as well. Because today, everybody, with the advent of ChatGPT and the likes of it from a technology point of view, all they need to do is look at your JD and tweak their CV to fit your JD. So how do you then come back and have a meaningful conversation with the candidate and set expectations to say that, no, this is not what we want, without them having and putting, without them going back and sharing negative views about your organization on something like a Glassdoor. So being able to strike that balance between messaging out the right messages to your candidates, I think these are, if I have to look at it, from really a 30,000 feet view, these are the three different areas that I would talk about as challenges. Back to you.
Yeah, one of the other challenges is the cultural fit. See, every organization has a different culture. And it's very, very, very important that we hire somebody who fits into our culture. So how do you think, Suresh, we can assess whether the candidate will be a culture fit for us?
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting challenge because a lot of organizations are set up well in terms of, identifying competencies or skills that are needed for the role. But the real challenge or the problem comes when they don't have the right frameworks to assess culture. So for me personally, as well as the organization I work and the organization that I've known in the industry, culture fit is very, very important. You cannot have the same template in terms of how you assess cultures because every role has a certain nuances that you have to look at. But there are some things that I personally seen working well is one, behavioral interviews, because a lot of our technical panels are equipped to assess on the skills, but they don't really understand the nuances of behaviors because somebody can be very competent on skill, but they may fail when they have to work or collaborate with teams. So behavioral interviewing is something that really works well. And an organization should invest in not just training leadership on behavioral interviews, but everybody who's going to be a touch point of any interview life cycle. That's one. Then in some roles, as Fabian said, case studies is a very important or interesting way to analyze the people's capabilities because case studies are how we are looking at a person's ability to think through a situation. That could be one. Assessments, a lot of organizations use assessments. So behavioral assessment using different frameworks is a very important tool that can be used. Also, when I or we hire as a team member, we probably look at it from our lens as what we want from the employee to perform. But a lot of times the synergy problem comes when they work with the peers of the organization or the teams that they work with, right? So it's important to bring in some level of peer assessment where peers have an opportunity to interact with the potential hires for the teams and see if there is a synchronization that comes or if this person is going to bring in or add value to the culture or if they will become very disruptive in terms of creating challenges. A lot of organizations don't fail because they have great products or don't have great products, but they fail because they're not able to see through the cultures. A lot of startups do really well. They grow big, but after a point, they start failing because the organization that they've recruited over the years, they don't have the same vision or the culture that the founders have. So I think culture is a very important framework. While we put importance on skills, I think as an organization, all of us should invest on having the right culture assessment tools within our own organizations to get the right people in. Again, what works for me might not work for Fabian or anybody here. We need to look into our own organization culture and see what is the right frameworks that we need to build internally to assess the talent that we want to hire for.
Yeah, today in our organization, we hire people for their attitude. We always believe that skills are trainable. We can train them on skills. So thank you, Suresh, for that. And now, after having hired them, how do we go about succession planning? So, Huma, would you like to throw some light on it? Because it's very, very important. Only if we go about with the succession planning, we can create a talent pipeline. So how do you address that?
Thanks, Minnie, for that. Very good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here, and thanks for the opportunity. So straight away, we're jumping to succession planning, though it was, structurally something that we do, at a very, very later stage in the organization. But nevertheless, what we have done is something like, we all know, being HR professionals, how this is structured, how do we identify critical talents, how do we, look at grooming them, how do you kind of give them special assignments and nurture them, give them individual development plans, and then look at moving them up the ladder. So these are the few things all of us know as HR professionals, how succession planning works. In our organization, we did it slightly differently, and so wanted to share some real-time examples of what really worked well for us. So for us, succession planning is not just the CEO -1, -2 level. So we did not just stop with leadership level succession planning, but we started off at the grassroots level. So I represent an organization called Dvara KGFS, and we are a deep rural NBFC with an NDSI license. So we operate in about 12 states, diversified, in almost 28,000 villages. So we hire locals, the sons and the daughters of the soil, who basically are just graduates or even 12th pass, and the locals there, right? So what we have really seen, the industry is suffering about 76% attrition. So talent acquisition is something that we keep doing. No, it is just a year-long process. And we have also scaled from 1,000 employee to a 4,000 employee in a span of 30 months. So there's been a lot of hiring, replacements, hiring, and this is an ongoing process. So that's when we felt that succession planning has to be integrated in the way we do things here and not a separate agenda. So we actually kind of announced to the organization that we will not hire any branch managers who are my local leaders externally from the market. So we actually integrated as a process of having a structured employee journey where a wealth manager who's a field employee comes into the organization, and there are certain very, very specific milestones and parameters that we have set so that they get graduated into a branch manager role and take on the position. But what we also did additionally is transition training, right? So we identified an internal pipeline of talents through certain criteria, and we started grooming them for the role. So we only have about 450 branches. So not 2,000 odd employees who are coming in can all become branch managers, right? So it's all about whoever can run fast gets the destination. So we kind of did that as a process by which we had modules created both online as well as offline, and we started grooming them on various elements of how to become a branch CEO. So in terms of understanding reports, people management, knowledge and skill enhancements, a lot of things in terms of developing the person and making him future ready. And then that will be the internal pipeline who will fill up in terms of a vacancy or a geographic expansion. So right from there to also our MD CEO himself was a step up. Various leadership roles within the organization, we had a second line leadership ready for all roles and functions. To the extent my CFO was an internal successor who became a CFO when my CFO moved out. My company secretary was again an internal movement. Compliance head was an internal movement. My MD CEO himself was an internal succession. So that way we were able to do it very successfully, both at the grassroots level as well as at the leadership level.
And at Sundaram Home also we follow this. We ensure that all our top functional heads are all homegrown. See, they would have all joined us as off-role employees, and now they are holding the position of state head and functional heads in the company, and they've been with the company for about 20, 25 years. So, yeah, that really works if we plan succession planning within the company. And so now, question to Lavanya. How do you think you can help with automation in streamlining the recruitment process? How far it will help us and how it can be done seamlessly?
Thanks, Mini. I think most of them here are talent acquisition folks, so everyone will be aware of an ATS, which is a long, long story, right? And all of us dreamt of making ATS. There are a lot of people who have worked with me in the past on ATS and making it a dream story for talent acquisition. So we have crossed version 1 automation of recruitment industry, and I don't have to give an answer how far we are successful, how far we were able to, eliminate recruiters and show ATS is doing everything, right? And we are now getting into the version 2, and we are trying to automate. What we are trying to automate is the point here. Do we really want to automate what exactly we are doing today, or do we want to take it to the next level where I don't want to talk to a recruiter, I want to talk to something else. So that is the issue that most of us are facing today. So if automation refers to removing sourcing as an activity, removing interviewing as an activity, moving it to a stage where I am a candidate, I go to the app of any particular company, I do an application, I keep moving across the different cycles, I schedule my own interview, print my own offer letter, then we are game. Yeah.
Fabian, would you like to add to it?
Then we are game. Then we are game. But the matter of fact here is we are at the cross intersection here. None of us today will actually say that I have not seen any tool which has enhanced recruitment. All of us have used at least half a dozen tools in our own scenarios. But how much has it taken away the work of the recruiter? How much of candidate experience has enhanced is the question here. That has not seen significant impact. What we have seen today is we have ensured that the recruiter is not doing a mad job in a very different way. What we have taken it to is it's slightly methodical. I would only say the impact is slightly methodical, but it has not changed the landscape of recruitment. So I will not even take it to the way called streamlining of hiring process. First, let's break the coconut. The coconut is not to be seen. What is that we want to automate? No company has still witnessed it. Do you want to automate sourcing or you want to automate offer? That itself. So because this life cycle is too huge, so there is no single tool that can replace and say that I will do the entire journey of a recruiter. If something like that exists, and if the audience has got a tool like that, I would like them to raise the hand and say, I don't have a recruiter community in my office, and my tool is doing right from sourcing the applicant to, printing the own offer letter. The applicant just gets in, says, I have received a note where I am selected, I want to print my own offer letter. Yeah?
A long way to go. And we look forward to the support from all the tech team to make our job a little comfortable. Yeah, so Fabian, would you like to add?
If I can just maybe give this a little bit of a different spin. Like what we just discussed, right? There are different tools that exist, right? So which means that the entire process gets a lot more fragmented. But if you look at it from a candidate's point of view, right? I mean, organizations at this point in time who have invested in AI-driven tools, who have invested in an ATS that has AI, sort of built into it. How does it sort of help the organization? Is it helps your recruiter with efficiency, right? Especially, again, going back to my last thing where you have too many people applying for a job, it helps your recruiter reach out to candidates much quicker. It helps your candidates get a response from an organization because otherwise candidates think that dropping an application in an organization is literally dropping something in a black box and they don't get a response to that. So it helps from a candidate experience point of view. From a hiring manager point of view, it helps you go back to your hiring manager with a lot more relevant CVs very, very quick as against having to go through that entire piece. So I think from a sourcing point of view, clearly there's an upside, for organizations that are investing in it. I think the other part of it is all of us in recruitment or in talent acquisition have always had this mundane job of calling candidates, scheduling interviews, then the hiring manager will back out. Today, that entire value chain gets automated. There are a whole host of tools that can automate that for you. So it takes that entire mundane activity out, giving you a lot more time to go and have meaningful conversations with your stakeholders and really play the role of a business partner, right? And I think the last piece, which is really the automation of offer. Earlier, right from the kind of erroneous offers that used to be generated because there was a whole host of manual intervention. Typically, most of us were running this on Word and, it was a mail merge. Today, that entire thing gets automated. Your candidate gets to accept it online. They also get their entire piece from the time of the offer until their onboarding. That piece again gets automated. There are frequent touch points. Again, enhancing, a candidate from a candidate experience point of view. So there is clearly an upside, but I think as an organization, we need to take that leap of faith to go down and look at what works for our organization. Because as I said, if you're an organization that has 100% churn, probably this may not work for you, right? But if you're an organization which is bespoke, which has very, very high touch points where you work in a very, very niche area, this is probably something that may work for you. So you need to evaluate what is going to work for your organization depending on the area that you sort of work in. Back to you.
Any of you could take this question. I think most of us sitting here would be facing this challenge. We release an offer, the employee takes it, and he also gives us a proof for him having resigned in his present company. And then, during the notice period, that is a villain, 3 months of notice period, they go around shopping, and they get another couple of offers. They either come back to us after a month and tell us, can you match this offer? It's another 20% hike from what we had offered. And for us, being a very traditional company, we are not able to offer them what they have got because we need to see the internal parity also. So we can't demotivate our existing performing employees. So it's a big challenge for us. So I just wanted to understand how you handle this situation. Or sometimes even after 3 months, they come back and tell us, no, my employer has retained me there, so I'll not be able to join you. So we have to start all over again. How do you handle this situation? Any of you can.
Okay. See, I think one is we are dealing with a very different generation of workforce. The loyal ones, the diligent ones, which used to take interviews and think my offer is I will worship my offer till I go and join that company. I will be in touch with hiring managers. Gone are those times. Let's be very realistic about the fact that today's workforce is all about, they don't find it to be extremely annoying to sit at home and take a 2 or 3 months break until they find what they want. And hopping between jobs without reasons is very normal. You have to call it as a norm, unless and until you come from companies like Fab, where Fab owes most of the employees for 3 years, 5 years, right? See, most of the IT solution providers will have to go through this phase where you are moving from millennial to Gen Z. Now Gen Alpha is going to come. And Gen Alpha believes taking a break during their education is not criminal. So where is the question of switching between jobs becomes criminal here? And ditching an offer is not considered to be ditching an organization. It is considered to be my aspiration. It's my right. I can attend 10 interviews. I can ditch 4 offers. So what's the problem? I never stopped you from keeping a warm pipeline, right? You can always give 3 offers. Let 3 candidates join or 1 candidate, move out of the queue. So I think we are dealing with a very different workforce. So what we really have to do is, until you see them onboarded, the position should be considered as open. And you have to have a warm pipeline until the time you can have any number of touch points. You can have any number of tools to gauge them. It doesn't simply work. It doesn't work at all. You cannot predict what they want to do. And sometimes they get onboarded. Some of our colleagues here friends will agree. They get onboarded and they just get upset with the induction or orientation and they just fade out, right? Most of them are nodding their heads, right? So it happens. It's a very different culture, right? And the aspect of moving between cities is considered to be very normal. Earlier, it never used to exist. The opportunities in terms of hiring types. 1 is a full-time employee, 2 is a freelancer, a consultant mode. Now the third one is the gig economy. They are saying the gig workforce is going to be 40% of your future workforce planning. 40% is huge, right? And people can work for 3 different employers on the same day. So why would I even worry if I am going to ditch 1 offer? Yeah. So the only way to keep this going is that you keep your sourcing engine on until the time you onboard a guy.
Especially for organizations like us, we have all vintage employees. Once an employee joins till retirement, they tend to be with us. That's the kind of culture we have in our organization. So for us, it's very, very difficult to accept this new changes. And the target given to us is 15% attrition, where the industry is operating at 60 to 70%. So, yeah, it's really a challenge for us. Yeah, I think I should take her views and manage.
Just to add to what Lavanya said, I think we build processes in our talent acquisition, but we don't build pragmatism, because we as recruiters, a lot of times, I've had n number of conversations with my recruiters saying, I have been treating this person like my best friend for the last 3 months. How dare he ditches or she ditches the offer? So I think there has to be a certain level of pragmatism that we have to build as part of our processes. And some of the challenges that we have the business is not just business because we don't educate them enough about how the market is moving. So it's important that we have the open communication with candidates, open communication with hiring managers. And there was a time when I've told one of my CHROs saying, if even my brother applies for a job in my company, I cannot promise that he'll join. So we need to have plan Bs, as Lavanya rightly said. No position should be considered as closed unless we have onboarded the candidate. And we need to be constantly in touch with the candidate, but it doesn't mean that we are going to keep the pipeline off. So let's be pragmatic. Let's build frameworks, so let's build plans that will help us to keep the fire growing, because for us it could be one requisition, but for a hiring manager or a business, it's loss of business opportunity. So let's be more pragmatic and let's invest time in terms of keeping our pipeline up all the time till we have the candidates onboarded. If that is taken care of, I think we are sorted in a lot of places.
Just not to take others' time here, one point here, I think also as an industry, we need to relook at the traditional notice period timelines. Do we really need a 90 days notice period for this set of workforce? Will it work? I think as an industry, we need to revisit that very consciously. 3 weeks, we should close.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, as a network of talent acquisition professionals, I think it's good for certain times to have a conversation with someone else to just see where it's going. Because, one is being pragmatic, nobody needs to take it personal. But somewhere, if we can, also have a little bit of background to what it is, it'll help. Because there are few people, as you rightly said, who do it for their benefit, but there are a few where it's a trend. So you can at least, sift out a little bit of it when at least it doesn't, we used to say it never happened for senior roles. It happens across the board. There is no more senior, junior, or somebody just coming out of a campus. It's there.
Very true. Now it's happening across.
And it's very hard to tell someone or your business that, we didn't have a senior director join us, which is unheard of, right? Even we haven't heard of it in the years that, we have worked. So it's somewhere, as you rightly said, expectation. People understand, but I think during COVID, it was the worst, at least those 2 years when you could attend, be a part of at least 3 companies, not even saying gig, attending, 10 interviews, but now making sometimes even in-person interviews in our traffic to come to office, you will see if they're at least a little bit keen to, join you or not, I mean, on a very lighter note, so that way.
Also on the lighter note, maybe, as part of the innovation, we'll also come up with a candidate score like the CIBIL score.
That is something that, where we can actually go and say at some point, because if one step goes wrong, it goes up on LinkedIn or on Glassdoor to say, the interview process is just not okay or something like that. But I think it'll be good to see.
Any company that builds that product, that's a 20 billion market cap on day one.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know definitely many of you here in the group would also want to know, how do you deal with absconding employees? All of a sudden, they don't turn up to work. How do you handle them? Any of you could take this question.
As an organization suffering the highest absconding numbers in
Let
the
Huma
NBFC
handle it,
industry, many of our NBFC colleagues here would face that. So earlier, we kind of had close to around 50% attrition, of which at least 30-40% is abandonment of service. So you actually don't get a notice at all, right? They just don't turn up to work the next day. So as a deterrent, we actually have a self-regulated organization. So we have Southern and MFIN, who are the associations, and Equifax as a bureau kind of helped us to report all of this, joiners and exits in their bureau. And as I was just mentioning, this candidate score kind of a thing. So they also had come up with this, because all of us were going through the same churn, saying that we'll start reporting it to the bureau, and that will be available for people to see if the employee has got, basically you'll have to report and say terminated due to abandonment of service. And that was a deterrent which kind of really brought down our absconding numbers, at least in the last 1.5 years. But what really happened is, because of the demand and scarcity of people, all of us started taking exception, saying that if your termination is due to abandonment, we are fine hiring you. So this has been a real problem. I would say that we're just addressing it on a temporary basis, but this is again one pointer which we need to really work on.
I think as a community, all of us should work together on this, how to handle this.
Some industries are better off, maybe like IT, because of the tiebacks that the employees have. So abandonment rates are lower, but I think we can have processes, or we have seen cases where the abandonment doesn't just happen on day. There are a lot of telltale signs that can be picked up of an employee's engagement level in an organization, right? So I know NBFC, I'm not there in the Huma seat, so I'm very happy to be where I am. But IT as an industry, we have seen that lesser going down because of a lot of tiebacks, and today a lot of organizations have dedicated employee engagement teams which focuses only on employee health, well-being, and their participation levels within the organization. So, but still that happens because market is very hot even now today. So people will abscond, but if you're able to give the right value system to the employees and the reason for them to be employed, I think, and a lot of times it's to the manager too, because there are a lot of organizations where managers don't have a job for a person to be on the seat for 90 days, yet they keep them for 90 days. So if you don't have a job, if a person walks up to you, has the courage to have a conversation, I want to leave, if there is a way that you can certainly backfill that role through reskilling or having another person take up the job till you get a new one, please let go of the employee, because it's no fun to have an employee who's not interested to work.
What role does mentorship play in building a pipeline or building the talent?
Maybe
And
I'll
how can
start.
we facilitate that as an organization?
So I think organizations, at least in mentorship, has always been, I mean, culturally we are attuned to, guru and shishyan, and I think that's how mentorship has sort of begun. Many organizations do it very differently, but I think if I have to pick up a couple of examples where I've seen mentorship actually work was where mentorship is built into your line managers' KRAs and KPIs. Built into ensuring that they are investing the time that is required so that they can go back and give the right amount of guidance to individuals. And this can be on two fronts, right? Because mentorship, for example, if somebody wants to go down the path of technical mentorship, you have technical mentors. If you have more around leadership, you have leadership mentors. But the organization plays a role of creating that ecosystem, right? And of course, there are different tools that are available. Each of the organizations sort of explore and do very different things. But in a place where it actually differentiates itself is when it comes to gender diversity. Because if you look at gender diversity and how mentorship plays a very significant role here is, when you look at the top of your pyramid, right, that number, the bottom of your pyramid will typically be 60-65% gender diversity. As you go up, it thins out. And this is where I have seen mentorship playing a very significant role. Because as a mentor, you are able to share with the individual as a mentee those life lessons in terms of how you have managed it. And there was one best practice that I heard one of the leaders say, it's not just about playing the role of a mentor, it is about talking about your mentee to the larger organization. So if you meet 10 mentors, it's about how do you take these 10 members' stories and talk about this to other senior leaders within the organization, because otherwise how are you going to get the kind of visibility that these mentees actually need, right? And second is also about, as part of that mentorship circle or mentorship connect, whatever you may call it, it's about also looking at opportunities that are given to your mentees, right? Because if you think that opportunities are going to come their way, very seldom that would happen. So as an organization, you need to create the ecosystem for this to happen and also create opportunities for your, the mentees who are typically high performers in your organization, where they can go and challenge themselves, which will typically be stress, something which is a stretch from whatever they are doing as part of their day-to-day, and being able to accommodate that within your talent ecosystem. So I think these are a couple of things, and if we are not, in today's ecosystem, when you're talking about mentorship, especially in the diversity space, I have seen personally in organizations that actually invest in this, the retention rate of gender diversity at the leadership level has gone up all the way by about 20-30%. And that's the significance that it plays there.
Suresh, would you like to add?
Yeah, actually, very well said by Fab. A lot of organizations today include mentorship or learning as part of their hiring process. If you see, a lot of organizations build it as part of the person's transition into the organization. And again, mentorship is something that cannot be a value add to an organization. As Fab rightly said, every line manager should have a KPI of developing mentors. And mentors and mentees doesn't have to be part of the same org structures they are part of, right? So organizations should create inclusive mentorship programs where they're able to work with mentors of different lines or streams Because a lot of Gen Zs, when they come into a job, they don't realize where they want to end up. So they need to have the opportunity of figuring out what is their career transition is going to be. So mentorship has to be structured, and it has to be cluttered so that people have access to leaders of their choice. There is an organization where I've known where mentees can go vote for the mentors that they want to have mentorship programs with. And mentors do make time. It's part of the mentors KPI that they cannot turn down more than 2 mentees. If they have got 3 requests, they at least have to do mentorship for 1 such mentee. So it has to be something structured. Unless we have it structured, then there is no way that we can monitor or have the ROIs derived out of the mentorship programs.
Maybe I'll just add one more to what Suresh said. Today, so when we look at mentorship, it is typically a senior leader mentoring somebody who's junior. But today, with the generational workforce also changing, there's a whole host of opportunity for reverse mentoring, where you have your Gen Zs who are able to go back and reverse mentor your Gen Xs and your baby boomers, because there is a whole host of change of mindset that is required for these leaders as well. So it is not just to invest in ensuring that, it has to be a senior-junior relationship. It could also be the other way around, where you have your Gen Zs who are juniors coming and talking about what are priorities for them, and that's a reverse mentoring that can help build and let your organization thrive, especially if you have a multi-generational workforce.
Definitely. The mentorship programs will help in retention, as Suresh also pointed out. So now, the other thing on offer is that, what are the key factors you think the candidates look for when they take up an offer? And how do you think we can align with it? Ayshwarya and Lavanya, I think.
Yeah, so I think we can just segue from what you were speaking about, actually hearing back from the kind of talent we are hiring, right? Like recently we had a very similar multi-generational, panel in our office, just to understand, because there are people, we are a 160-plus-year-old company, headquartered in the US. So there are people who have been there all their lives for 40 years in this organization, and there are people who had, 40 days who are looking to move because they're not happy with something, right? So I think sometimes it is also to hear and, be patient. And I think as HR, when we have an offer conversation with any candidate, that spending that extra 10, 15 minutes where you can get the pulse of what actually, makes them want to move, or why they are looking for, because it's like a one size won't fit all, right? For some of them, leaving the compensation part aside, right? Like for some of them, it can be the insurance you offer. For some of them, it can be maybe your flexible benefit policy. For somebody else, it's hybrid working. For somebody, it's probably, the daycare services that you offer. It can be anything. And you can never say that, I've asked 10 people, 5 of them have said this, so this is what they want, right? So I think the more you hear and the collective intelligence you get, and keep evolving your practices and not wait for, one fine day where, only in 3 years we will look at our comp benchmark or our total rewards, that won't work. It has, we used to do it once every 2 years. We're doing it once every 6 months now, because there's no way around it.
Yeah, very, very true. We had an issue similar to what she was saying. We've had a person at functional head level, and she was all out and excited to join our company. Sundaram Home was something which she's been looking for, and she was very happy. But unfortunately, just a week before she could join us, she got to know that her mom has been diagnosed with cancer. So we didn't then have an insurance policy. So what happened was, her present employer had the policy covering her parents. So then she came back to us and she really apologized. And we couldn't do anything about it because you didn't know how much it's going to cost for the treatment. And she had a big cover there for health insurance. So yeah, then after that we learned from that, and we included that in our comp structure.
Okay, I'll just add a couple of points. What really this generation, we are talking this generation again and again, mainly because the workforce is thoroughly going for a change. And it is impacting the hiring engines very clearly, right? So one is, in the offer letter, we need to really call out for the role that we are hiring for very specifically, what they are getting hired for. So this generation gets excited about that. So it can't be the other way around, that you hire them for a very title and then you deploy them across various different streams. That doesn't work anymore. So I think one is very clearly calling out what is the role, what is expected out of the individual, and they get excited more about, is it an hybrid work culture, is it a remote working culture, and also about the fact that what is the opportunity if the person's performance is going to be closer to the expectation, what is going to be the next set of opportunity should also be given there. Because this workforce doesn't get excited simply for money and for title. It looks for very different aspects. So if you're going to say, I'm hiring you as a data analyst, and if you're going to perform well, your next level of progression is data engineer, data modernization engineer. If you keep showing them, then they'll be all the more excited. Oh, this looks like a thoroughly dude organization. Let me join there. But if you have a native offer letter where you talk annexures to annexures to annexure, nobody is reading that. No one is reading that.
Very true.
Can I just add one competency for ourselves to be able to be able to message that out very clearly in a customized fashion to a candidate so that the candidate sees value when they sort of come into the organization. And I'm saying this is over and above your benefit plan, your compensation, because all of that is considered to be table stakes today, right? Because if your benefits plan, your compensation is not on par, then probably you might not be able to attract the kind of talent that you actually want. So in addition to the table stakes, being able to hyper-personalize and customize that bit of communication out there to your candidate and message your value proposition out, whether it is role progression, whether your organization is probably one of the organizations that gives you paternity leave of 3 months, that's the kind of differentiation that you need to talk about to the audience, right? Because each, like we heard, a different thing will appeal to a different person.
Just adding to Fabian, something just came up. For us, that is something which really worked also, right? So we kind of operate in deep rural and we hire the locals. So one important need was not to move out to a town or a city to have an employment, right? We give it in the same place where they are present. So the base location was a definite added value, but what was more important was their contribution to the societies and communities that we serve, right? So they will have to give income generating loan to that women entrepreneur who's looking for, improving her business. And that will kind of increase the quality of life, make their livelihoods, and the entire household is benefited. So the kind of work that they do, so we call our frontline managers as wealth managers, and these people can stay in their own villages and serve the communities where they are part of. So it kind of connects to the mission and vision of the organization, right? So that purpose is something is also more, attracting, and that's the value.
So now, I think they have indicated the time. So due to time constraint, we'll stop the discussions here and I'll leave the floor for Q&A.
I would request you to take the Q&A networking break if possible.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So for doing the honors, I would like to call Ms. Sonika Aaron from Marching Sheep.